Hi guys, here we are, one day past hump day, no makeup Thursday, like I told you before. It's going to be a fun afternoon. We've got a simple little project for you. I wanted to go a little more upscale for a Christmas ornament this time. We've done a cute little Santa and we've done a cute little gnome. I decided to do something a little more elegant and a little more traditional, and I think you'll enjoy it. It's not a difficult one to paint. It's very, very easy to paint. And it incorporates a little bit of stamping in the background and a little bit of stenciling. So I think you're going to enjoy it. We do have a couple of things to cover. We have a winner from last week's giveaway. It is Christine Clayton from the UK. Christine, if you get a couple of minutes, just fire me off a quick email or a message on YouTube with your shipping information so that we can get you your prize pack to you. You won the Snow Day pattern pack and the stencil set to go with it. And thank you so much for watching. We really do appreciate it. Now, next week, we have, I should say this week, we have a giveaway as well. We're giving away a gorgeous set of Dynasty Stencil Pro stencil brushes. You're gonna love these. They're beautiful. Gorgeous red handle, wonderful synthetic. You're going to think they're the best thing that's ever landed in your craft box. So one of you that leaves your name, a comment, and let us know where you're coming from, where you're watching from. It gives us an idea of where in the world you are, and that is always great. So comment, tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button too. That would be nice. I'd appreciate that too. Okay, so I think we're about ready to get started. So this is the piece we are going to do. I've done 3 slightly different designs for this one. It's a very simple design. It's just holly and berries. We worked with a very limited palette. I've got 2 shades of red, 3 shades of green, soft black, and some gold, and of course a little bit of white. So it's really straightforward. And those of you that have been following me for a while, probably going to notice there's no asphaltum in this one. I didn't use asphaltum in this one. That never happens. I put asphaltum in everything, but for whatever reason, I didn't this time. So this is it, probably the one and only pattern you will ever see that doesn't have asphaltum in it. As far as supplies go, paint, you don't need a ton of it. We're going to use 1 stencil, Stampenda stamp. This is Vintage Note, my favorite stamp. So we're going to use that. We're going to give these gorgeous Dynasty Stencil Pro stencil brushes a little bit of a workout, and we're going to use a couple of blenders for dry brushing and an angler or an angle brush for floating in some shadows. So we don't need a ton of brushes for this either. So let's get started with the background. So the background essentially is just a coat of country red. Straightforward, really simple. And then the corners are shaded with a little bit of soft black, which is this color right here. You might have noticed we've got a screen inside the video so that you can watch how I load brushes and see which colors I'm using. We decided to trial it, and you guys seem to like it, so we're going to stick with that. So I'm just loading that up to float, and it's a simple wash. Just load that color into the corners, not a neat and tidy float. I just want to get that darker value to the outside edge of this surface. Oof, not enough water. And the nice part is with lots of water, you can just walk it around the corners, just like so. Now it's going to take probably 2 or 3 trips around to get the darkness that you want. But what we want to do is keep this area fairly light and then get those corners nice and dark all the way around. So you just let that dry and then do that again. Usually takes 1 or 2 passes to get it. And then you're going to apply a wash of that same soft black over the whole surface. Now you notice that it's very dark at the outside edges, but I've kept the center part light. And then with a wash of the soft black, it tones it down and softens that boundary in here. So when I say it's just a wash, it's literally just a little soft black on your brush and you slap it over, let it dry. You don't need a lot, and there's a lot of water in it. So this is where you end up. So from this point is where we're going to grab our stamp. And I have my little brayer, and the color I'm using is called 24 karat gold. This is in the Decor Extreme Sheen. I love these metallics. They're very sparkly. Give you lots of great metallic look. And they're very opaque. You don't need a lot of paint to get a really great result with these Extreme Sheen. So I just roll it out on my palette with that brayer. And then over the stamp, just to load it up. We're not looking for perfection here, and we're not looking for a ton of it. So it's just a light touch to put a little of that text on your surface. It doesn't have to be legible. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just a little bit adds a little bit of visual interest and texture in the background. And then immediately wash your stamp. Just run it under cool water. If you don't have time to clean it right away, take a baby wipe to it before you set it aside, and then that will give it a chance to get cleaned off before it dries in there. So I'm going to quickly dry this. So now we're ready to do that next step, and that is with this little stencil. This one is called Postal. It's in the M Square line on my website. And you have to decide where you're going to place your design. So in this particular case, I have the design in the lower right corner. But if you wanted to switch it around and have it up top, then you just arrange it so that the holly is in the upper left corner, in which case you're going to take your stamp and arrange it so that it's not perfectly on the surface, but a little bit off. I just like how that looks. And take your stencil brush and some of that 24 karat gold, and I nearly broke my own cardinal rule. Whenever you're stenciling, make sure you secure the stencil with a little bit of tape so that it doesn't move around. Now, I don't want this to shift while I'm working, so I'm going to tape it into place. And I have a little bit of that 24 karat gold on my stencil brush, and I've blended it so that it's evenly distributed through the brush. And then you should take a piece of shop towel or paper towel and just blot it a little bit so that you don't have gobs of gold paint on your brush. This will help prevent it bleeding under the surface. So then apply the color in a circular fashion and change directions frequently. So if you do this with small quantities of paint, the brush should be almost dry. Work in a circular fashion. You'll end up with a nice crisp finish. All of those edges will be nice and clean. You won't have any bleeding underneath. And it'll give you a nice clear image. So that's just about done. So I have my stencil taped in place, and this is where that benefit comes into play, is I can have a look at what I've stenciled to see if everything is completely filled in, that the color is uniform. And if it's not, I can drop it right back into place and then apply a little color wherever it needs to be applied. Just like that. And then check it again, and it's perfect, just the way I wanted it. So now I can remove my stencil. So this is your base. This is what the rest of the design is going to sit on. So let's move to the next piece. Now on this one, I have my line drawing in place, And I'm using a white graphite to transfer. And I always put it shiny side down so that you actually get graphite on the surface and not on the back of your paper. Now, I trace my line drawings with my Uniball Signo. The reason for that is this. This has a stainless steel ball and it's a very fine point. So the lines, when you trace and transfer, are very fine, thin, and very clear. So that's why I use that pen for that purpose so much. And the nice part is that's just graphite, so I can wipe that off with a little bit of rubbing alcohol or odorless terp, or even just with my Factus black eraser. So I've traced my holly leaves and berries onto the surface, and they've been base coated. The leaves have been base coated with antique green. I only have one coat on this. And then I have one coat of Santa Red on each of the berries. So we're going to start with the berries. Now we're going to shade the berries with soft black. And it is just a small float and fairly weak. I don't want the color too strong on this. So I'm going to, well, stronger than that. There we go. So a wider float is on the back side of the berries, like so. Don't forget to shade under that berry. And on the back side of this one as well. So it's a fairly wide, I'm going to say it's roughly 1/4, perhaps 1/3 of the width of the berry. And you're going to repeat that process on the opposing side, but it's going to be much narrower. So it should not be as wide on this side of the berry. And that will give us a place for our highlight that's more to the upper left and center of the berry as I'm looking at it. Now, as long as your shadow is a little darker and wider on this side and narrower on this side, this will help create the illusion of it being an orb as opposed to just a flat circle. And now we'll switch to shading these leaves. So I'm going into, this is plantation pine. Oops, too much water. There we go. And I'm going to shade under this leaf, right here, and underneath that berry. I'm going to do the same thing on this side, right here, and again here. Wherever there's an overlap, you're going to need to have a shadow. Like that. Now we have a shadow going down the center vein of the leaf, like so. And we're going to have one down this leaf, like so. So now it's just highlighting on this. Now there's two ways that I can tackle the highlighting on this leaf, and one is through a simple float. And I'm going to pick up a little of that margarita green. It's a strong, light green. You can float this in if that's your preference. And down that center vein on the opposite of the shadow. I'm going to do the same thing on this. A little bit here. And I've got this right there. I love this margarita green. Oops. Mrs. has goofed. So I'm going to take my point blender and a little water and pull that out of there. I had picked up a little paint where it wasn't supposed to be, so I'm going to come back to my angle and pick it up again and blend it out again. There, much better. I do like to have highlights on both sides of the leaf, just not as strong on one side as it was on the other. It helps pop that leaf out. You can see how it's standing out against that background now. And I'll switch around and come over here to this one. This one can be a little bit brighter here. And we'll float that highlight along the middle, just like so. So we've got our greens in for the highlight. But we are going to brighten these a little bit, but we're not going to float this one. I'm going to actually use just a little bit of the warm white and a little of the margarita green, but I'm going to put it on my dry brush. And I'm going to use this medium point blender. These are fantastic for dry brushing, especially in areas where you need a smaller highlight and you need a little bit more control, and that point is going to give you that. So I'm picking up just a tiny bit of white and I'm going to mix it into that margarita green that we had blended out, and I'm going to blend the brush out on my palette, and I'm going to brighten that highlight with a dry brush of that mixture. And I'm going to do that particularly paying a little attention to those points on the leaf. You don't need a strong green for this, but a pure white would be too much. So I like that little touch of the green mixed into the white. It keeps it from looking a little too cold. There we go. Now, when you blend with this point blender, it'll be almost dry by the time you get it all worked in. I'm going to turn this. And it's a nice soft brush, so it picks up the paint nicely and the color distributes nicely. And that point gives you a little more precision with where that color lies down. It's almost like working with like a crayon because of the way it's shaped. So it's very easy to control. Now, if at any time that you feel your shadows have gotten a little subdued, all you have to do is go back in with a little bit of that plantation pine back into those shading areas and put another little float in just to deepen the first one. And two things will happen. One, that contrast from the highlight, your shadow is instantly going to look darker and your highlight will look brighter, and it will help define your leaves just that much more. So we'll do one last one over here, and then we'll move on to our berries. Nice. I'm going to Put a little shadow at the back of this little brush, little leaf here. There we go. So now we're on to our berries here. Need a highlight. So I've got my small point blender and I'm picking up just a little bit of that warm white. And again, I'm blending it on my palette. And my highlight is going to be just to the left side of the berry, like so. And I just scumble in a little highlight, but I'm keeping it to the left-hand side so that it's 1/3 of that distance. And it's sort of a circle. There we go. And let that dry for a sec. And we're going to repeat that, but it's going to be a little smaller this time and towards the upper part of that blend so that we get just a slightly brighter small dot. This is the light impact point where the light is actually striking the brightest. Right there. So we have that highlight in place. We're going to turn to that Zero Rigger, which is my nice fine one. I'm going to pick up a little of that Margarita green, and I'm going to put a fine highlight line of that full strength Margarita on the outside edge of that leaf, right there. It doesn't have to be right on the edge, but close. So if it's not perfectly on it, don't worry about it. It's fine. There we go. Put a little stroke on that highlight line on the center. I'm going to pick up a little more and add a touch of white to it, just to make it a little more opaque. And I'm going to put in our branch and our little viney tendril here. We'll clean up the graphite lines when we're done. And then last but not least, you need a final impact point on those berries. And I like to do that with just the tip of the brush and a small amount of white right in the center of that last dot that you did. Like so. Pretty easy paint job. So we have one last detail to add to this. Well, I should say one of the last details that we're going to add to this. I'm going to put a gold border on this piece. And I like to come in just from the edge. This one's probably about 1/4 inch or so. And I'm going to put just a quick line on the edge. I'm going to do that again on this side. This is an oil-based gold pen, so it takes a minute for it to dry. So I'm going to put it on this side now. And again, I'm coming in about 1/4 inch. And I'm going to stop just before it reaches the design element. Like so. I don't want to go over the leaf. And I would do the same thing down here. Again, about 1/4 inch. And then I'll connect these two as well. Just like that. Now to finish this, I like taking my favorite fugly brush and that same gold that we did the stamping with, that we stenciled with, I'm going to pick up a little on my brush, thin it out a little bit, And I'm going to spatter with a little bit of the gold. You could do this with black or with white, but I don't know, we've got a gold thing going on and I think the gold looks really nice on this. And that, as they say, is that. So, this is your finished ornament. Now you could use this as a gift tag. You can hang it on the tree. They would look cute, again, done as in a series for a banner. But I think they would be very pretty as a gift tag. As an ornament and a gift, you'd simply flip it over, add a space for your name and the date, and of course the year and to whom you are giving it to. So that's it, a fast and very easy Christmas ornament. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoy this. This is a really easy and very simple and elegant looking Christmas ornament that you can bang out very, very quickly. They make great hostess gifts as well and would look great hanging around the neck of a bottle of wine at Christmas time. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to put your comment in the comments section and let us know where you're watching from. And one of you will win a great set of those Dynasty Stencil Pro brushes. Thanks for joining me. Mwah. Love ya. Stay safe.